Hello there, lovers of cardboard and plastic. Today I'm going to be talking about the Lord of the Rings Living Card Game Digital Edition a little bit more. Today is actually going to be sort of my initial thoughts. I've been playing roughly a couple of hours now, almost 10 hours I would say, exploring different quests, exploring the different menus, that sort of things, and really I just want to give you sort of initial thoughts. This is an early access product, so it's not going to be a review because there could be some significant changes coming. I will talk about something that FFG actually put out, that they're going to say there are going to be some changes about things that people already don't like. So I'm just going to go launch in kind of my thoughts so far and then kind of go from there. So before I go in quickly to my thoughts, just remember, if you like this content, you want more content, remember to like, subscribe, do all that stuff. So let's just get right into it. So first of all, let's get all the gushy stuff out of the way. This is all the stuff I really absolutely love. I'm going to compare it kind of to Hearthstone and Elder Scrolls Legends, because those are the other two kind of big card games out there in the digital format, and so it's kind of hard to not just compare them just a little bit. And so really, I think one thing that FFG has done here is just that knocks both of them out of the park is the presentation. Everything looks gorgeous. I mean, you've got the extremely nice looking board. It's not really a board, but it's just a really nice background that fits with where you are. And if you're on the quest, it's really cool that is, for the most part, you're in sort of a foresty setting, but sometimes you just have, it looks like a nice forest with leaves falling along the sides. There's even one part of the quest where it says, oh, hey, you're by a creek, find your way across the creek. And right around the edges of the whole board, you can see water flowing. And just lots of little details like that flow throughout the game. And it is quite amazing that they did that, because, why? None of the other ones really do that. It's just, they have one standard sort of board, and that's really what they stick with. Hearthstone does have some cool, like, clickable things you can do on the board and just kind of stuff that Blizzard's known for. But this, I think, just really sort of knocks it out of the park. On top of that, the story content. So far, I'm not full the whole first campaign right now. I'm stuck kind of about the third quest a little bit, but just the way it's presented, the voice acting is done really, really well. They have characters appear like Gollum, and he sounds like Gollum, so the voice actors they've got are really, really good. It's really astounding. The story is just pretty well done. I wouldn't say like the writing is, oh my god, great, but it does give you sort of a nice sort of small snippet of a Lord of the Rings story. The various cards that appear in the background have voices to them as well. Just lots of little things. I think just basically, essentially, if anything, they nailed presentation by far. It's probably one of the best part of this game, literally right now, is just the presentation. They nailed that. The UI is super snazzy. It looks really nice. The deck building menu looks, it's basically just Hearthstone, but it still looks really nice. It's really easy to read all the cards, at least on PC. We'll have to see if they create a mobile version of this, if that sort of translates over. But there's just a lot of little details in sort of just the presentation of this game that are fantastic. I will say, for the gameplay itself, it is a very interesting twist of basically the Lord of the Rings card game. If you watch my playthrough of the tutorial, actually it's slightly deceptive there, because it doesn't actually go over a few things that unfortunately I kind of wish they did go over. A big thing being the threat gauge on the right-hand side of the board. That is basically a timer. Just like it is in the actual card game, basically once it hits 50, you're done. Game over. But this digital version has a slightly little twist to it, where at certain levels, depending on what location you're at, or just in terms of the actual game itself, there will be little events that will trigger depending on which threat you get to. Some of them can be kind of devastating. There is one I can think of at 35 threat or 30 threat, somewhere in there, for the first quest, and you get towards the end, and that'll basically, if you have any allies on the board, they all instantly die. I had, the first time I played that quest, I had maybe 5 on the board. They all just died, and basically my heroes were screwed at that point. It was kind of devastating. The tutorial also didn't really do a very good job of explaining sort of the way the quest works. So quests will periodically, almost always, be out on the board somewhere, and basically you have to balance between attacking and sending characters out onto the quest and defending and stuff. It's very much like the actual card game, but it's just faster. Everything happens pretty much instantaneously. You don't have to worry about individual threat levels and things like that, and attaching different characters. So really what they did here is more or less just take the card game and condense it to a quicker, faster sort of format. That makes it kind of look and feel sort of Hearthstone-y, but once you actually play it, it does have a very, very Lord of the Rings twist to it. And that's kind of the short and simple of it, so let's talk about some of the meh kind of areas. So really, I find, at least in terms of presentation, let's talk about that real quick. Really, the only thing I don't like, I don't know if I really like the character borders that appear once you put them out on the field and stuff. I don't know why, but it just doesn't seem to fit with the sort of the realistic graphics that sort of flow behind it, and just, I don't know, just there's sort of a disconnect there, I feel. This is pretty minor complaint, so it's really just kind of a point, and they just don't really seem to fit all that well. Also, voice acting for the cards is kind of hit or miss sometimes. I don't think Aragorn got a very good voice, but again, that's pretty minor until he actually appears as sort of a main character in one of the quest lines. I don't think it's really going to be that big of a difference. Now, the big thing is sort of going to be gameplay. Now, I know that, yes, this is not, it's not a direct one-to-one of the actual Lord of the Rings living card game. It's a much simpler version, which I do think is actually sort of a good thing. It does give a very good accessibility point to a lot of people. The original living card game does have sort of a problem of being sort of convoluted, just having, what was it, I think, I want to say like 8 different phases and just a lot to sort of compress and think about on all the various different cards and just everything. That game is pretty dense. This takes that and sort of simplifies it into a pretty simple format for, you know, basically on the go digital format. That being said, FFG has done sort of a bad job of actually making that really be sort of a point. A lot of this stuff was really sort of kept hidden, and they didn't really say that, oh, it's going to be sort of radically different. Even the name itself, it's Lord of the Rings living card game. And that's it. There's no subtitle that like Digital Edition or some sort of, you know, just subtitle, something to say that this is a slightly different product from the original. So I completely understand why a lot of people out there are probably just like, oh, that's really disappointing. I wanted to have an actual digital format of the original. On top of that, currently right now, I would say the game is a little bit on the easy side. Largely because the AI isn't always as mean as it probably should be. It's sometimes kind of nice. Sometimes I'll have a hero or a character that's lower health, and they're very close to dying. And this is pretty big on certain characters that, for instance, maybe get attacked twice in a single round. And Sauron decides to not attack them. Maybe because they have guard, and yes, it'll take 2 attacks to actually kill them because, you know, they'll lower the actual damage against them, but still, it feels like Sauron should go for the bigger threat initially rather than going for a side threat that's really not actually a big deal. Especially if that character is active and the character that Sauron decides to go for is not active. Admittedly, I have not tried the hard difficulty yet, so hard could actually be a little bit more mean. But one thing that the original card game did pretty well was sort of the difficulty level and just the actual cards themselves. What it took to complete the quest felt tricky, and then you had actually the cards itself and trying to manage your threat level and all that. This has a little bit of that, but it's simpler in a way that just at the moment does feel slightly too easy. Really, I've gotten through some quests my first time. There was no real surprises, anything like that. I got through it no problem. Most of the time they've taken me really only about 2 tries to actually get through, which is very unusual. The actual card game, sometimes it would take many tries before I would actually get through it. Admittedly, this is only the first campaign though. There is a second and a third that are supposed to come out. I don't know exactly when. There's no dates or anything like that for when they might come out, but they are sort of looked at to be sort of later. And that's possible that those could be really cool. Hey guys, so quick insert here, just because as I was editing, I realized I forgot to mention something kind of on the negative side, but there definitely are some bugs in the system right now. I've seen really only a few like animation bugs, so sometimes when you hit the card, the animation doesn't trigger all the way through, or it just kind of skips and happens. I don't really know if that's just sort of my system being weird because I am recording it at the time, or if that's just something that sort of happens to everybody. On top of that, I have seen a disconnection error. You have to be connected to servers to play, and unfortunately when it disconnects, it will try to reconnect, and then it says, oh, I'm connected, but unfortunately it's not actually connected, or that just screws with it. It usually happens during the loading screen between either right when you start up or right before you go into a quest. And the problem there is it then freezes, and basically the only way to get out is to actually quit and reload the game. Now I think for the moment everyone's been waiting for, the actual sort of buying that you have to do in this game. Now there's two things that basically add up to where you buy things, and that is going to be the shop, where you can buy different card packs. So for instance, one of them has Legolas and a bunch of cards to go along with them. You can also have to buy the individual quests inside of a campaign, and then also on top of that, there seems to be the only way to get really cool card backs or anything is to look into the Palantir. And I'll show one right here, but this is basically the worst of the worst you can possibly get. All I got was some Valor points and a common card, which is just awful. So the Palantir is essentially a loot box. There's been a lot of loot box fiascos in terms of games recently, so the fact that FFG kind of went with this is a little bit on the not so good side. Now that being said, I will give them credit here. They did put this out on early access, and that sort of doesn't completely excuse it. But recently the developers did put out a message saying, hey, they're listening to all the feedback. The reason when they went with early access because they wanted to get this feedback and they wanted to do this right. So at this point, I'm kind of willing to give them somewhat of the benefit of the doubt that some of this stuff will get changed. And I hope it does, because there are some things that are maybe a little bit too much. I do think buying, like, I really think the first campaign should just be free. Give everybody just one campaign. Mostly because the quests they're okay, but you really need a bunch to actually sort of grind through and maybe experiment with and stuff like that. If you just have the one quest, it's not nearly enough, and people will grow bored, and it won't be that great, especially since buying the actual individual quest costs a lot. It costs around 6,000 Valor points or so, somewhere in there, which you can get, I would say. So per quest at the end, they give you kind of a score tally, and you get Valor points based off that, and then each hero can get some extra achievements per quest. So maybe one time you can get around 400 Valor points. But after that, at most, you're probably going to get maybe 250, somewhere in there. And that's going to take a long time to get that 6,000. Now, I understand the work they put into these quests, the voice acting, the various different animations. There's some really cool animations that happen. Like there's one part where you see someone wrapped in a spider's web, and the card on the board is actually sort of jiggling around and moving. And, you know, it's a lively little card and animation, and they put a lot of work into that stuff. So I understand that they do need to get, you know, some sort of compensation for that, but I think you have to find the right balance, and I don't think it's right. It's just not there yet, and I hope it does get fixed. I do think that the first campaign should just be free, especially since this does look like it will be a free-to-play product, with microtransactions, which I think is perfectly all right. I think you just have to find the right sort of balance for where those are. The card packs themselves are, I want to say 2,000 or 3,000 Valor points, and they are $199. That one I do and cash, and that's okay. I'm not exactly 100% sure how many cards you get. It doesn't really look like a whole lot. You get one hero and then just a couple of cards. It's not as extensive as the card packs in the physical form, but at the same time, those packs are $15, and people are completely willing to actually pay for them. But I think there is sort of a stigma in the digital world. The price has to be lower. So what do I think? Finally, do I think you should rush out and buy one of the founder packs for the digital version of Lord of the Rings, the card game? Now, I'm going to say it's really up to you. I think there is a great product here. I think it will become, hopefully, an even better one. So it's up to you whether you want to spend sort of some money. If you spend for the highest tier, I mean, you pretty much can get everything possible at launch. Or if you get the cool collector's edition of the actual physical card game, which I got, and that gives you basically all the founders packs and just lots of stuff, and you're going to be able to do plenty of this stuff. If you're more casual and you really just want to check this out, I probably wouldn't do the Shire one, the cheapest one, because you probably you're still going to actually have to grind to actually get the last 2 quests, assuming you just buy quests with those Valor points you get from it. I think with the medium tier, the one after that, that one you should be able to at least get the entire campaign. But again, this is early access, things may change, so you might want to just even wait, because they might hopefully make that first campaign free, or at least, very least, they will lower the cost per quest. If they could half, or at least knock off like 25% of the Valor points from that, I think that would go a long way. 50% would probably be even better. It's just, they really got to find that balance between price and sort of the grind. Hearthstone, does have sort of a grind to get different card packs and things. You can grind just playing. Every 3 victories you get 10 coins, and then you have a bunch of achievements and things like that. This doesn't have that. They could definitely copy that. That also might be a good way to add the Palantir loot box stuff as sort of a reward occasionally, or if not, in every single one of those daily sort of quests you can get. And that would at least, I think, soften the impact of having these microtransactions that are very off-putting to people, especially loot boxes, because they're essentially gambling. Now, one thing I will add to that real quick is you can actually look at the whole card library and basically see what cards you're missing, and you can see whether you even want to gamble for them or not. And plus, I believe if you buy all the card packs, you'll get all the cards anyways. So I'm sort of unsure what the Palantir is actually for, besides the special card backs, which I think that's the only way to get those. And that's a pretty cool sort of stuff to get. I do like card backs, and I do like that you can customize your decks. At least the card back itself, that is cool. But I don't necessarily think we need a loot box system just for those. It would be probably better to implement those as sort of either a quest or maybe a monthly quest that you can contribute towards, something to reward players for it, that sort of thing. So we'll have to see where this goes. I'm going to keep playing with it. I may post a couple playthroughs of some of the campaign and just kind of see where it goes. There's really only one right now, and then I'll probably get some more cards as time goes on, because I'm basically going to be able to get everything with all the points I have and just that sort of stuff. So I'm looking forward to see where this goes. I'm not fully sold on it yet. I do think, like I said, the presentation is top notch. They really did that perfectly. I think the mechanics are well done. I think it's a fun little different system that has the spirit of the original card game, but manages to be simpler and just more approachable for everyone. I just think if they just balance that sort of campaign and the maybe the difficulty, that sort of thing, and then just the loot boxes and all that. If they get all of that situated, I think we'll have a really good card game system going, and honestly, it might be the best. Actually, I mean, it really is going to be the best living card game system out there for digital software, mostly because this is a cooperative, and you know, there's nothing like that on the market in the digital form. The other ones are competitive games, and so a cooperative game is a little bit different, and so I think that would be sort of fun, and we'll see if the difficulty ramps up when you add 2 players. Right now, that's not actually in the game. That's coming later, so we'll see. I'll keep covering it, and just, you know, hey, that's it for this video. I'll leave it right there. Remember, like, subscribe, leave a comment below if you like this, if you want to see more coverage, that sort of thing, and I will see you next video. Bye.